Captain Elias Vance had learned long ago that silence inside the Galactic Citadel was never a blessing, it was a warning. The colossal station floated above the twin stars of Hezorth, its crystalline plating catching light in flawless prisms, but its beauty did nothing to soothe the unease tightening in his chest as he descended toward Vault Sector 9. No one volunteered for assignments here. The vaults were where questions went to die, and answers were buried alive. His new directive had come in a sealed data capsule delivered without explanation. Audit Vault 9 for biometric inconsistencies. No briefing. No escort. Not even the thin veneer of a welcoming committee. Just an order that reeked of political punishment. After the scandal that pushed him out of Terran special intelligence, an incident most of the council pretended never happened, Elias suspected someone wanted him forgotten in these subterranean corridors. He moved through the security junction alone, his boots echoing against alloy flooring marked with centuries-old scars. Harsh, blue-white lights buzzed overhead, flickering with the strain of the power network buried deep beneath. A cold voice issued from the proximity speakers as he scanned his ident band. Clearance accepted. Proceed. Flat, neutral. No curiosity. No recognition. Vault AIs preferred their operators obedient and silent. Elias stepped inside the lift and felt the chamber drop like a stone. Gravity dampeners kicked in late, deliberately, he assumed, forcing a jolt through his spine before equilibrium returned. An old trick to remind personnel that the vaults operated under their own rules. As the doors peeled open, a stale draft crept in, carrying the faint scent of ionized dust and something else, something metallic, almost burnt. The kind of scent that came from containment fields pushed beyond safe thresholds. Rows of empty cells stretched into the gloom. Some held outdated stasis rigs. Others displayed cracked rune plating and scorch marks suggesting violent resistance. Yet the biometric logs he'd skimmed on the way down reported all units stable and occupied. Someone was lying, and lying badly.
He moved deeper.
The corridor curved downward in a slow helix, and as the lights dimmed, Elias relied on the mild augmentation in his vision, a leftover gift from years in intelligence, allowing him to pick out traces of recent activity. Scuff marks. Heat signatures lingering where someone had been only hours earlier. But no personnel were scheduled inside the vault today. "Who's down here?" he muttered, knowing the silence would answer him. A faint distortion pulsed through the air. Subtle, rhythmic. Not quite a vibration. Not quite a sound. It brushed the edges of his mind like a whisper that didn't yet choose a language. Elias paused, muscles tensing. He'd felt odd transmissions before, experimental telepathic fields, psionic interference, but this was different. This felt alive. He followed it. The source led him to a containment chamber whose access panel flickered erratically. The device sputtered as he approached, projecting fractured hollow text across the wall. System failures crawled across every line. Unstable power, corrupted logs, unidentified energy signatures. Elias frowned. The biometric chart still insisted the cell was empty, yet the readings showed a dense, fluctuating life pattern inside. He initiated a manual bypass. For a heartbeat, the containment field snapped into perfect clarity, revealing a silhouette suspended within the stasis capsule. Broad shoulders. Humanoid form. But the details blurred, as if the being existed half a frequency beyond visibility. Two radiant shapes extended from its back, arches of luminous geometry like wings forged from pure, refracted light. The moment froze him. Then the image vanished. The field stabilized. The silhouette dissolved back into opacity. Elias staggered away from the panel, breath catching. Stasis tech didn't malfunction like that without deliberate interference. Someone had tried to hide this prisoner, someone powerful enough to rewrite logs and scrub council databases. And if the figure inside was real, if those wings were real, then every myth Terrans ever whispered about, angels in the stars, suddenly felt less like legend and more like an erased history. Before he could take another step, his neural implant crackled with static. A voice bled through, the same whisper he'd sensed earlier, soft, layered, and impossibly distant. "Human, you hear us?" Elias clutched the side of his head as the air temperature plummeted. Red lights flared down the corridor. A metallic clatter erupted from above as spherical drones unfolded from ceiling ports, single ocular lenses glowing like predatory stars. They weren't standard patrol units. These were enforcement drones, programmed to neutralize unauthorized personnel with lethal precision. Of course, Elias muttered. Couldn't just be a quiet audit. The drones locked onto him. He sprinted back through the corridor, weaving between support struts as energy bolts tore through the walls, scattering sparks in blinding arcs. The hum in his skull intensified with every step, that same alien whisper urging him forward. He found an auxiliary hatch partly collapsed by a structural failure and forced himself through the narrow opening. Metal scraped against his gear. The hatch gave way into a forgotten maintenance shaft steeped in shadows and grit. The drones clustered at the opening but didn't pursue. They lacked clearance. Whatever lay beyond this point was outside even their jurisdiction. Elias dropped into the darkness. His fall ended abruptly on a dust-covered platform. Rusted conduits webbed the chamber, humming with dormant energy. When he raised his wrist lamp, the beam illuminated a circular engraving on the floor, vast, ancient, etched with meticulous precision. Two intersecting wings bound by chains. The same symbol he'd glimpsed in fragmented council archives years ago. The seal of a species the council always insisted never existed. The whisper returned, clearer now, resonating through the chamber with a timbre that felt both mournful and expectant. Human, free us. Elias exhaled slowly, pulse thundering in his ears. Whatever conflict he had stumbled into, it was older and far larger than any scandal that had exiled him to the Citadel. Someone had imprisoned beings powerful enough to haunt the edges of consciousness itself. Someone had tried very hard to bury the truth. And now the truth was speaking to him. Elias awoke to the gentle thrum of harmonic resonance, a sound too precise to be natural and too soft to be mechanical. His vision swam in shifting gradients of gold and violet before stabilizing into the interior of a narrow chamber lined with crystalline panels. A single figure hovered over him, tall, gaunt, wrapped in dark archivist robes that shimmered with encoded glyphs. "I was beginning to think the drones had reduced you to particulate dust," the man said, voice brittle yet composed. "Be grateful they're as predictable as the council that built them." Elias pushed himself upright, instinctively reaching for a sidearm he no longer carried. "Who are you?" "Dr. Cale Horn," he answered. "Archivist, vault custodian, and, at present, your only ally in this place." The name jolted Elias' memory. Horan was a senior analyst rumored to have vanished decades ago after accusing the council of historical manipulation. The kind of disappearance that suggested execution, or worse. Finding him alive down here meant the vaults held more than prisoners, they held secrets. Cale moved to a console embedded in the chamber wall, fingers gliding over translucent controls. "You triggered a restricted field. The council will assume you perished in Sector 9. For now, that gives us a slender advantage." Elias steadied himself, though the lingering echo of that alien whisper pulsed faintly at the back of his mind. What was in that stasis capsule? Cale paused. His expression carried the weight of a man who had been waiting years for someone to finally ask that question. A truth the council has smothered beneath layers of propaganda and selective history. He pressed a command. The wall dissolved into a holographic projection of winged figures, humanoid, radiant, draped in chromatic energy. Their forms shifted like living constellations. "Meet the Aurelians," Cale said. "A species your ancestors once saw and interpreted as divine." Elias stared at the projection, pulse quickening. The silhouette he'd glimpsed in the containment field now had a name. Cale continued, pacing slowly. "The Aurelians evolved along a bifurcated axis of matter and light. Their bodies operate in two states simultaneously, physical and resonance. Their so-called wings are arrays of photonic emitters, not feathers. They're not gods, of course. Merely advanced beings who understood the cost of unchecked political power." His tone sharpened. A lesson the council never learned. And the council imprisoned them? Elias asked. Not imprisoned, eradicated, Kale replied. Or attempted to, at least. The Aurelians refused to support the unification mandate. They believed young species should develop without intervention. The council saw this resistance as an ideological threat and labeled them destabilizers. It wasn't long before their entire civilization was hunted, purged, and entombed. Elias absorbed the words with tightening dread. And humanity? Where do we fit in? Kale offered a humorless smile. You were the last species they made contact with before their capture. The council struck before the Aurelians could establish a diplomatic presence. Terrans were impressionable then. Your myths of angels, messengers, divine watchers, they all trace back to first contact fragments the council failed to erase. Elias felt the floor tilt beneath the weight of revelation. The Aurelians were real. Their appearance had shaped human folklore, and the council had buried that truth along with them. The whisper brushed his consciousness again, soft but insistent. We endure, find us. Kale glanced sharply at Elias. You heard them, didn't you? Their telepathic resonance leaks through the stasis fields. It means the last few are still alive. Alive. Elias echoed. How many? 3, Kale said quietly. The last of their kind, held in the Seraphim chamber, the deepest vault. The council intends to perform a final erasure within the cycle. Elias' breath caught. A genocide. A cleansing, Kale corrected bitterly. Their word, not mine. He activated another projection, revealing a map of the vault's subterranean levels and a pulsating red sector near the bottom. The Seraphim chamber lies here. You can reach it, but once you do, the council systems will detect unauthorized presence. They'll send Zorvac. Elias stiffened. Commander Zorvac was a name whispered with the same fear as a pathology. A reptilian warlord carved from war campaigns and political purges. Encountering him would not end with conversation. Kale stepped close, lowering his voice. You didn't stumble on this by accident, Elias. Someone wanted you to find the truth. Or perhaps the Aurelians sensed you. Humans have a latent resonance potential, minor but present, enough to bridge their weakened telepathy. Elias resisted the instinct to deny it, but the whisper's persistence made denial meaningless. He could feel something, a presence not hostile, but pleading, a consciousness waiting for him. What do they want from me? Elias asked. To survive, Kale said simply. And maybe to atone for trusting the council once. A deep tremor rolled through the chamber. Lights flickered. Kale's expression darkened. They've located this enclave faster than I expected. Zorvac's units are breaching the upper levels. He seized a data core from a hidden compartment and pressed it into Elias' palm. This contains everything. The council's crimes, the Aurelians' history, the redacted files. If I fall, you must carry it. Elias tightened his grip on the core. I won't let them die. Kale nodded, weary but resolute. Then follow me. The access conduit to the Seraphim chamber lies beyond the collapse line. But understand this. Once we cross that threshold, there is no going back. Before Elias could respond, the distant thunder of armored boots reverberated through the corridors. Kale's eyes hardened.
Go.
I'll delay them. No, Elias protested. You'll be killed. Kale cracked a faint, defiant smile. Archivists aren't as fragile as council rumors suggest. Without waiting for further argument, he hurled open the chamber door and limped toward the oncoming soldiers, runes along his robes igniting with defensive sigils. Find them, he called back. Set the truth free. Elias slipped into the narrow conduit Kale had indicated. As he descended into the depths, the whisper returned, clearer now, threaded with both desperation and hope. Human, we are waiting. Elias moved through the conduit with a pace driven less by urgency and more by instinct, as though some unseen hand were guiding him along the twisting descent. The deeper he traveled, the more the metallic infrastructure gave way to an architecture older and stranger, smooth walls of silvery mineral that pulsed faintly with an inner radiance. These were not council-made constructions. They felt grown,
Shaped.
as if the Aurelians had once walked here freely before being chained by the very government they refused to obey. The whisper in his mind strengthened into a steady resonance, brushing against his thoughts with a featherlight touch. We endure, follow the light. Elias tried to steady his breathing, unsure whether he was hearing voices or sinking into madness. But his steps never faltered. Something within him, some dormant thread, seemed to align with each faint pulse of energy beneath his boots. The tunnel opened into a wide atrium illuminated by a pillar of white gold luminescence rising from the floor to the ceiling. Suspended within it, encircled by fractal runes and containment talons, was a crystalline core that throbbed like a weakened heart. Inside the core was a figure, tall, elegant, with wings folded tight against his body, their light dimmed to embers. Aurelian. Even weakened, the being radiated an aura of ancient sorrow and quiet strength. His eyes opened as Elias approached, and their depth threatened to swallow thought itself. Not hostile, simply weary. Human, the voice echoed directly into Elias' mind, but this time it carried warmth rather than desperation. At last, one who hears. Elias pressed a hand against the containment field, feeling static crawl up his arm. I saw your stasis chamber in Sector 9. Dr. Kale sent me. The Council seeks the erasure of our kind, Aurelian finished.
Yes.
They fear that which does not kneel. Elias nodded, jaw tightening. He said humans have a resonance, something that connects to you. Aurelian's gaze softened. Your species carries a faint harmonic imprint from our first meeting. Ancient, almost forgotten, but still present, still alive. Another tremor rippled through the chamber. Alarms blared from hidden conduits as a synthesized voice declared, unauthorized presence detected. Security breach in Seraphim chamber. Elias cursed under his breath. Zorvak's forces had found them. He looked back at Aurelian. I don't know how to free you. The system is locked behind council encryption. The key is not code, Aurelian replied gently. It is connection. You must allow our resonance to align with your own. Before Elias could ask what that meant, a blast door thundered open behind him. Armored soldiers surged through with precision, stun cannons raised. At their head was Commander Zorvak, towering, scaled, his reptilian face carved in permanent disdain. His voice slithered through the chamber like cold steel. Human, Zorvak growled. Step away from the prisoner. You were ordered to audit records, not meddle with classified species. Elias raised his hand slowly, but defiance burned in his eyes. The council lied. They've buried entire civilizations, including his. And they're about to finish the job. Zorvak's sneer revealed rows of serrated teeth. The Aurelians refused unity. Their destruction is lawful. He turned to his soldiers. Terminate the stasis core and neutralize the human. As weapons leveled toward Aurelian's prison, Elias acted. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe the resonance guiding him, but he slammed his palm against the containment field. Light exploded beneath his hand, flowing into him like a current. Aurelian's voice flared inside his mind, no longer soft but thunderous. Open your mind. Let the frequencies join. Pain ripped through Elias' skull as his consciousness expanded, as though invisible cords were tuning themselves through him. He felt every pulse of the stasis machine, every fracture in Aurelian's failing prism, every breath of energy still trapped within the chamber. And beneath it all, a deep hum, his own resonance awakening. The containment runes flickered. Zorvak roared. Fire! The soldiers unleashed a barrage of energy bolts. They struck the containment field and ricocheted outward in volatile arcs, knocking several soldiers off their feet. Elias staggered back as the stasis pillar cracked open with a crystalline scream. Aurelian collapsed forward, wings dim but unfurled. The brilliance of his partial freedom illuminated the chamber with spectral fire. The remaining soldiers advanced, but Aurelian lifted his head weakly, eyes blazing. A wave of photonic force erupted from him, hurling them against the walls. Zorvak alone remained standing, armor singed but unbroken. You've doomed yourself, human, the commander snarled. The council will erase you for this. Elias stepped in front of Aurelian, breathing hard but steady. You're welcome to try. Zorvac lunged. Elias moved before thinking. His body reacted with heightened clarity, each muscle guided by that strange new intuition threading through him. He dodged the strike and slammed his forearm into Zorvac's elbow joint. The warlord snarled as armor plates cracked. Elias grabbed Aurelian's shoulder. We need to get out. Now. Two more, Aurelian whispered. Two brothers remain. Elias's stomach tightened. Then we find them. He supported the weakened Aurelian as they crossed the wounded chamber toward an auxiliary path revealed by the collapsing pillar. He didn't know where it led, only that the whisper in his mind urged him forward. Behind them, Zorvac rose from the debris, eyes burning with murderous fury. You can run, he growled, voice trembling with hatred. But understand this. Every star in this galaxy will know your name. Elias Vance, traitor to the Council. Elias didn't look back. His resolve had crystallized into something sharper than fear. Good, he said. Because they're about to learn the truth you've buried. They disappeared into the radiant tunnel as alarms wailed behind them, and for the first time, Elias felt the strange certainty that his path, whatever it was becoming, no longer belonged to the Council. It belonged to the truth, and to the winged beings who had waited millennia for someone willing to unearth it. The ascent toward the upper vault levels felt like climbing through the ribs of a dying giant. Shattered conduits sparked overhead, raining pale embers across Elias's path as he guided Aurelian through the tremoring passages. The Aurelian's weight was deceptively light, his form sustained as much by resonance as by flesh, but every faltering step revealed how weakened he truly was. Even so, his eyes glowed with a resolve that belied the fragility of his body. The truth must reach the stars, Aurelian whispered into Elias's mind. If we fall, let the cosmos witness our end. Elias gripped his shoulder more tightly. We're not falling. Not today. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber where two other stasis monoliths towered like obsidian obelisks, their surfaces etched with dormant sigils. As Elias approached, Aurelian's wings flickered with a feeble radiance that crawled across the monoliths like awakening fire. These are my brothers, Aurelian said aloud, voice thin but steady. Seraphel and Valen, last of the Aurelians. Elias placed a hand upon each monolith, and once again that strange harmonic thread tightened in his mind, resonance pulling resonance. He felt their dormant consciousnesses brush against his own, cold and exhausted, but undeniably alive. Stay with me, he murmured. I'll get you out. He focused, letting that new inner frequency rise like a tide. The monolith shuddered, runes igniting with brilliant arcs. Cracks spiderwebbed across their surfaces before they split open with a low, keening wail. Two luminous forms collapsed forward, wings dimmed, chests rising just barely with breath. Aurelian knelt beside them, placing a trembling hand upon their foreheads. Light passed between them, weak, flickering, but unmistakably familial. Elias bowed his head, giving them the moment. It didn't last. A booming metallic crash tore through the chamber. Zorvac emerged from the shadows beyond, armor scorched, scales bleeding iridescent streaks where Elias's earlier strike had fractured bone. His soldiers, fewer now, but larger, heavier assault units, fanned out behind him, plasma shields glowing like captured suns. His glare was molten hate. 3 abominations and a human insurgent, he snarled. You will not leave this vault alive. Elias stepped forward, pulse steadying, senses sharp with resonance. You're terrified, Zorvac. Not of us, of the truth going public. The truth, Zorvac hissed, is whatever the council declares. Aurelian struggled to rise, wings trembling. Elias, let me shield you. No, Elias whispered. Save your strength. I need you alive. He moved before Zorvac could give the order. His body surged with instinctive precision, guided by the invisible currents Aurelian had awakened. He dove behind a cluster of fractured pillars as plasma fire scorched the ground where he had stood. The Aurelians huddled close, their weakened resonance fields flickering like embers caught in a storm. Elias reached the central control dais, an ancient interface the Council had patched over with crude modifications. Beneath the metal plating, he sensed the original Aurelian architecture humming faintly, waiting to be awakened. "Broadcast the truth," Aurelian urged from behind, the words carrying a rising intensity. "Reveal everything Kale preserved." Elias slammed the data core into the console. Holographic streams erupted across the chamber, archives, testimonies, encrypted proof of genocide and political suppression. The console resisted him at first, council firewalls pushing back like a living thing. But Elias's resonance, fused with Aurelian's fading power, surged into the system with a clarity that cut through every barrier. A galactic broadcast beacon ignited. Zorvac roared, charging forward. "Shut it down." The chamber exploded into chaos. Soldiers stormed the dais, weapons blazing. Elias moved like a man guided by prophecy, ducking, striking, using the environment with uncanny fluidity. But he was only human, and the enemy pressed in relentless waves. A blast hurled him backward. His ribs screamed as he crashed against the railing, vision blurring. Zorvac loomed over him, blade drawn, an elegant weapon of charged obsidian. "You should have died quietly," he growled. "Instead you stain the galaxy with treason." He raised the blade, but a radiant form intercepted the strike. Aurelian, wings blazing with sudden, furious brilliance, caught Zorvac's arm with both hands. His knees buckled, his strength burned nearly to nothing, but the light pouring from him formed a barrier so blinding Zorvac recoiled in shock. Aurelian's voice trembled but carried the weight of a dying star. "No more chains. No more silence." Valen and Seraphel rose behind him, leaning upon each other to remain standing. Their combined resonance flared like a triad of dying suns, brief but magnificent. Elias dragged himself upright. Blood dripped from his temple, but clarity filled his mind. The broadcast was active. Billions were watching. The truth was no longer contained. Aurelian turned to him.
"Go. Live."
"You carry what remains of us." Elias felt the words like a physical blow. "I'm not leaving you. You must." Aurelian pressed a hand to his chest, sending a final surge of warmth through Elias's resonance. "The galaxy will need a witness who survives." The Aurelians faced the encroaching soldiers together, fragile but unbowed. Light poured from their forms with increasing ferocity, the air vibrating with a resonance that built into a rising crescendo. Elias understood. This was not surrender. It was final defiance. He turned and sprinted toward the evacuation shaft as the chamber filled with blinding brilliance. The Aurelians released their combined energy in a single detonation of pure chromatic force, an explosion so vast and luminous it erased sound itself. The shockwave hurled Elias into the corridor, sealing the passage behind him. Silence fell. Elias lay there trembling, tears blurring his vision. He knew without looking back that the Aurelians were gone, spent in one last act of rebellion that ensured their truth would never again be buried. He rose slowly, clutching the data core now fully integrated into the galaxy-wide broadcast system. Somewhere above, alarms echoed through the Citadel as countless worlds received the forbidden data. Aurelian's final whisper lingered in his mind, faint but unbroken. "Light endures as long as one carries it." Elias wiped the blood from his cheek and started toward the surface, every step driven by a vow he had not spoken but fully embraced. He would return to Earth. He would prepare humanity. And he would make sure the stars never forgot the ones who burned themselves to expose the truth. Behind him, the vaults lay in smoking ruin, but the light they tried to bury had finally reached the galaxy.